Are you ready? If you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya. What's up? I'm awesome. Hello, ladies. Hey, ladies. Hey, really? Really? Oh, yeah. Yes. Yowie, wowie. Like mom. Baby. It's true. Believe that.
What's up, everybody? Radio Matt here from the Two Words podcast with a little bit of bad news for you. So I know 2 weeks ago we had some technical difficulties. Show had to cancel. This week we also couldn't record because of a conference that John had to go to that we just weren't able to schedule around. So that's a whole month without new shows just as the season was getting started. Super sorry for that. So in an effort to kind of make up for it, we're bringing you our first ever clip show. So one of the things that we love to do at the end of seasons is take a career retrospective of some of our favorite wrestlers. And so far we've got 4 amazing career retrospectives from Attitude Era wrestlers that have left an indelible mark on the industry. And we're going to go through those again today. And so we're going to share with you the retrospectives on The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, The Rock, and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So relive these with us, and we should see you again in 2 weeks for a brand new show, and then 2 weeks after that for our go-home show before WrestleMania that we are super excited for. Enjoy these blasts from the past.
And welcome back to the Two Words podcast, where we're talking today all about Stone Cold Steve Austin. We've made it kind of, I guess now makes it a tradition.
Technically,
that
yeah.
at the end of every season, because this is our last episode until January or whenever I'm told to come back.
February, I think. First week of February.
February.
First or second week of February.
And so we're talking about our favorite wrestlers. We dedicated an entire episode. Last time we did the Macho Man Randy Savage.
Macho Man.
And today we are talking about Stone Cold because, to be completely honest, if you were a young boy in the 90s, whether you watched wrestling or not, Stone Cold Steve Austin was the coolest human alive.
Yeah, he transcended wrestling,
yeah,
for sure. He was everywhere. He was all over the place when he got super popular.
So I guess the question is, what made Stone Cold better than everybody else? I mean, what made him transcendent?
I think the main thing that he had going for him was that he wasn't a fake wrestling persona. Even at the beginning of that A&E documentary that he did, that biography, the first question they asked him is, what's the difference between Stone Cold Steve Austin and real Steve Austin? Or Steve Williams, I guess is technically his name. Did he change it?
He legally changed his name
I
from
thought so,
Steve
yeah.
Anderson. I believe it was Anderson.
It was Williams. I know that much. But he said, I don't even know what the difference is, really. And that's all he said.
I think he said it was just an amplified, it's just an
amplified version of him. There's not really a difference.
Amplified version of it. I think what draws most people to watch Stone Cold is that, like, everybody wanted to be that guy. Mm-hmm. Like, everybody wanted to flip their middle finger to their boss in the 90s. Everybody wanted to fill their boss's car with concrete. Everybody wanted a beer truck. Like, that was...
Everyone wants to drive a Zamboni.
That was just who it was. And he was saying all of the things that we wish we could have said to our bosses. But then he would get in the ring and he would put on these really, really great matches.
He's very physically capable. Always has been, really. Like, he started off in middle school in football.
Yeah.
To a 205-pound running back.
It's a meaty boy.
Big running back. He said he was too slow to run to the left or the right, so he could only run right down the middle. but that was all right because he could just plow through everybody.
People.
But he would focus on staying fit, living responsibly. He wasn't a party guy drinking or whatever when he was a teenager. He wasn't raising all kinds of heck back then. He was the guy that was yelling at his older brother and his friends to shut up so he could go to sleep because he's got football practice
Got workouts in the morning, man. Yeah, and if you really think about it, something I didn't realize, I was watching some stuff on the YouTubes. His first WWE championship was won at WrestleMania 14. His last match was at WrestleMania 19.
Yeah, it was a very short
5-year. I mean, he had other stuff before all of that, but it was a relatively short run.
Relatively short, like spotlight. When you consider like Roman Reigns, how long has Roman Reigns been near the top of the chart here? It feels like over a decade, and I'm pretty sure it's close to that. Yeah, really, Stone Cold's run is very short. I remember going back and watching through some of the Raws when WWE Network came out, and I'm watching the rise right at a start at WrestleMania 14, and I continue on from there, and I get like a week or two into it, and I'm like, wow, we're already at this part.
Yeah,
this is going really fast. And it took. It was like less than 100 Raws, and you're done with the storyline.
Yeah,
I'm like, that's sad. I mean, I want so much more.
Yeah, but like the ability to compact that much and make it, because it feels like he was on top for 20 years.
Oh yeah, he made such a big impression in the industry, and I think that tied in with the fact that the Attitude Era was also being kicked off as he was rising to prominence, and so he became the attitude of the Attitude Era. Now DC Talk, DX had its portion of that as well, and then The Rock, of course, would come along. But really, what kicked it off was Stone Cold Steve Austin. He had that from. He developed that character rather from ECW.
Yeah,
which he really didn't do much in.
He did not wrestle a single match in ECW.
He did what was essentially the first pipe bomb situation. Yeah. Like he would come on ECW after he got fired by Eric Bischoff and just rant. And Paul Heyman just said, "Yeah, say whatever you want, go nuts." Yeah. And that's exactly what he did. And he developed this kind of anti-authority, pardon me, working man fighting back against the boss kind of mentality.
Yeah.
And that's what brought, JR recruited him into WCW. And then after that, he had moved to WWE and then saw what was going on in ECW with Steve Austin and brought him over as well.
They always ask Eric Bischoff like if he regrets firing Steve, and he's like, Steve wouldn't have become who he was if he'd have stayed in WCW.
Oh, like absolutely.
It just wouldn't happen because he was doing the Hollywood Blondes then. One of the funniest videos you can see from the Hollywood Blondes is they announce him from Hollywood, Florida, or Hollywood, California. It's one of the two.
No, I don't think that happened with that. That happened with Ringmaster. Or no. Stunning Steve Austin. It was before he was. So yeah, I guess they did, but that happened before the Hollywood Blonde started.
And
like,
they
that
said
was
he was from like Hollywood, California, and he turned around and yelled at somebody. He's like, "I'm from Texas."
What am I gonna do with my accent?
Can't tell people I'm from California.
I really think it's funny though that he came out of Stunning Steve Austin. You think of who he became and who he is known as, and you think about him with long bleach blonde hair and a red robe with sequins all over it.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't sound right.
But he made that work too. He really did.
Yeah, he was good in every aspect, but it wasn't a draw.
Yeah.
Like he was good as a wrestler of that era, but that era was coming to an end. And most people were still fighting that in the industry. The idea of like the superhero, the pretty boy, all that in the wrestling industry was coming to a close. And WCW did see that happening. And I think, honestly, they thought that Steve Austin wouldn't be able to pull that off, the transition to the new era.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the facts. I mean, he's stunning Steve Austin. He wears sequin robes to, he's in the Hollywood Blondes. He's not going to.
He's a Ric Flair ripoff.
Yeah, he's a beefier Ric Flair. that's not gonna fly with NWO coming in and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I also love the fact that his big push was a fluke.
Yeah.
Because he got his big push because he won King of the Ring.
Which he was not supposed to win.
Which he was not supposed to win. And the only reason he won it is because they had to punish Triple H. And he was going to be the original winner.
Yeah.
But Triple H and HBK had just taken part of the curtain call, which was that breaking the
Fourth
kayfabe.
wall. Kayfabe. Fabe.
To basically give a big old group hug to their Click members, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, who were leaving to go to WCW. And a fan happened to catch it on camera. And if you've been in the wrestling industry long enough, you've seen that footage of them all hugging in the ring. Well, someone had to get punished for that. And they couldn't punish Nash and Hall because they were gone. They weren't going to punish HBK because he was, championship arena. Was he the champion?
He was leaving because he was about to be. He was he had injured himself.
Oh, that's right. Okay, so he was
leaving.
But yeah, so he wasn't. So they punished Triple H.
The exact words were, I think you're going to have to learn to eat crap and learn to like it.
And so
She did.
Yeah, so Stone Cold goes to win this, and there's two matches that he has to do in the paper because that's how they would end King of the Ring. They would have the finals. Or the quarterfinal, or the semi, whatever. What's the next level before the championship?
Yes, the semifinals.
Semifinals and then the finals,
And
right?
the
Okay, so they had the two semifinal matches and then the final match on that pay per view. So it would usually start off with the two semifinals, and so he's in a match with. Let's see, who was he fighting? He was in a match. Mark Marrow. He was in a match with Mark Marrow, and Mark Marrow accidentally kicked him in the mouth in that match and busted his lip open. And so he had to be rushed to the hospital. They put 14 stitches in his mouth, and he made it back just in time to go and wrestle his championship match, or not championship match, but finals match for King of the Ring against Jake the Snake Roberts, who was doing a whole Bible thumping gimmick. The doctors told him, no, you can't wrestle, but he's like, well, I'm gonna, and he did. And he went out there, and Michael Hayes came up to him as he was heading out to the ring. He said, what's catch me up to speed kind of thing. And Michael said, yeah, Jake the Snake just did a promo, and he was talking about, how God brought him here, and, the whole religious spiel and everything. And so they go out and they have the match. Stone Cold wins. And that's when he just on the fly came up with the Austin 3:16. You talk about your Psalms, you talk about your John 3:16. Austin 3:16 says, I just whooped your butt. And then he ended that promo with, and that's the bottom line because Stone Cold said so. Two things that he'd never said before.
Yeah.
At his big push win, three things combined right there sent him to the stratosphere.
To the top.
All because Triple H had to hug Kevin Nash and Scott Hall.
It's the most expensive hug you've ever given.
But had that not happened, had the curtain call incident not happened, Stone Cold might not have ever made it up there because Vince McMahon was not all that thrilled with Steve Austin.
Yeah.
He brought him in as the ringmaster. Stone Cold needed money, so he didn't fight that title. He's like, all right, I'm the ringmaster, whatever, I'll make it work. Okay. Master of the ring. They didn't push him all that well. Nothing stuck. Nothing was making anything good. So he said, let me change my name. And he had been watching the Iceman tapes on TV. And he said, I want something, something ice related. And so he sent that to creative, and they gave him 3 pages of possible names, some of which were
Victor
Fang McFrost, Snowman, Otto Von Ruthless, Mr. Freeze, Ice Dagger, Cruel Luke, Cool Cat, and Chili McFreeze. And as Mick Foley said, like, even if you had everything else that went right for Stone Cold, if his name is Chili McFreeze, we're not talking about the same guy.
Yeah. I love Michael Hayes' reaction to that whole promo, because the entire time he's looking around like, are we about to get shut down? He's looking around like, is he really saying these things?
You know, and I'm thinking back as hard as I can, and I don't really recall there ever really being all that much backlash from the religious community about the Austin 316 thing.
No.
In fact, he even talks about at one point he was in an airport, and like a whole group of priests came up to him and asked him for his autograph. And he said, "Oh, I thought y'all were coming over here to yell at me over the Austin 316 thing." He said, "Oh, no, we love it. It's fine."
It's fun. It's fun. But you know, you really think, like, you talk about none of that would have happened had they not had the famous curtain call. And like, but if you don't have that moment, you don't have any of the Attitude Era.
Almost certainly.
You don't really have DX. You don't have any of this other stuff. And WCW wins the Monday Night Wars.
Almost certainly. Because I bet they would have pushed Triple H apart
Hunter
from
Hearst Helmsley.
Yeah, apart from Shawn Michaels, as opposed to what wound up happening. I mean, you're absolutely right. I think it all falls apart without that curtain. They really should be thanking them for the curtain call incident.
Really should be. Well, some Stone Cold facts.
Let's do it.
Some Stone Cold facts. Originally born Steve Anderson, he did change his name legally to
Anderson. It's Steve Williams.
I'm pretty sure it's Anderson,
because he goes to his first match in Memphis and he introduces himself as Steve Williams. And I said, "Well, you can't be Steve Williams because we already have a Steve Williams, Dr. Death. So you got 15 minutes to come up with a new name." And he couldn't come up with anything. So the promoter said, "All right, you're Steve Austin," because he was from Austin.
Stephen James Anderson.
That's so weird.
Yeah.
Well, why wasn't that in his biography?
I don't know. Originally born Stephen James Anderson, changed it to Stone Cold Steve Austin. Legally changed it to Steve Austin. Went by many monikers, but my favorite is the Bionic Redneck, because the name of the $6 Million Man was Steve Austin. And kids, you can ask your parents about that show and just go.
Okay, hold on. Okay, hold on. We're both kind of right. He was born Stephen James Anderson, but it appears that maybe he was adopted by a stepfather.
Oh.
And it was changed to Stephen James Williams.
Okay. So we can both be right.
I was going to be very confused.
I was so upset.
Like, I did my research, dang it.
When he broke into the wrestling business, Dutch Mantell was running the scene down there, and Steve wasn't very good. He wasn't very compelling in the ring, and so
Not compelling.
Dutch Mantell made
Athletic.
him sit in a chair and watch every single match for a very, very long time. Dutch Mantell, who later became Zeb Coulter, the racist manager for Jack Swagger. So it all comes full circle.
I got one. His first introduction into wrestling, like his first attempt, was Gentleman Chris Adams' 3-day camp at the world famous Sportatorium, at which Mick Foley was also in attendance.
Ooh.
And he was he was active in this arena. And so him and a bunch of the other wrestlers were up watching from the crow's nest at everybody at the wrestling camp. And he believed that Steve was the only one that looked like he had what it took.
Oh. That is
interesting. Crossing paths.
Stone Cold fact about the Sportatorium. It is the world famous Sportatorium that had like 4,000 seats. It was a very, very small arena for being such a legendary place.
I did not know that.
And it's no longer a thing anymore. Came up playing football, was originally a football player, as we mentioned. While he is billed from Victoria, Texas, he was originally from Edna, Texas, which I don't know why they would change either one of those, because they're both small, no-name towns. He earned a scholarship to Wharton Junior College, played for 2 years there, and then got a full scholarship to the University of North Texas, where I think he played like a season.
Yeah. He
With
didn't
the
last very
Mean
long.
Green.
Let's see. He was wrestling in WCW as Hollywood Blondes. In Japan, he tore his tricep, but he kept wrestling for 3 more weeks. And then he had to have surgery. He was off for a long time. And that's actually when Eric Bischoff called him and fired him.
That's fun.
So that's fun. That's always the time you want to get fired, right? When you're healing from the injury that you sustained, giving your part of your
Giving your
life
all.
to the company that you were
And they just fire
fighting
you.
for.
And then they go under, but joke's on him because they went under. So give me
those
some
guys aren't
more
even
facts.
around
I don't really have any more facts.
You have any more facts? All right, let's go. Let's see. Oh, we talked about a lot of that already.
Yeah, we talked about all this stuff.
So let's see.
The Stone Cold moniker came from his wife had made him
that's
some
right.
soup as he was sitting in a chair.
Tea.
Was it tea?
It was tea.
Yeah, anyway.
Drink your tea
It was a
before it gets stone
a
cold.
hot liquid. She said, "You need to drink your tea or it'll become stone cold." And he's like, "What?
He's like, what?
What?" And she's like, "It'll be stone cold." And he's like, "I like that."
Okay. Match with Owen Hart for the Intercontinental title. Owen did a tombstone pile driver with Steve's head 6 inches too low. And Steve was paralyzed briefly in the ring. He told ref Earl Hebner to tell Owen to roll up for the win. It was the worst roll up in the history of the business, described by
bad
Steve
roll-up.
Austin. He won the title. He got up and walked out with the help of other people on legs he could not feel.
That's fun.
And he didn't actually injure his neck. Like people think that he broke his neck or something, but he just bruised his spinal cord. And even to this day, if it's cold or something, he'll not be able to move his leg correctly.
Yeah.
And that also translated into how the rest of his career went, because this was before he became the big, anti-boss guy, before he was doing the stunner all that much. And so Vince McMahon recalled the leg that he used to kick before he reached in for the stunner was the leg that he couldn't always feel all the way. Mm-hmm. And so he couldn't always tell if he was kicking high enough, because he's supposed to kick you in the gut. But occasionally, he'd kick you a little lower. And he would always apologize, and I'd tell him, you know what? It makes it easier to sell. Just get kicked in the nuts. Like, okay, I can feel this pain.
Just, you do what you got to do.
But yeah, he bruised his spinal cord, and they said if it had been any harder, that he might be a paraplegic for the rest of his life. So, like, he narrowly avoided.
That's fun. That's fun. Well, there are just so many wrestlers that really have Steve Austin to thank. Guys like Tommaso Ciampa, guys like Kevin Owens. I mean, where would Kevin Owens be without Stone Cold Steve Austin? Mm-hmm. He wouldn't be doing that springboard stunner that he loves so very much, which is a great variation on the stunner.
Yes. But he is quoted as saying, Steve's legacy makes it hard for us to become superstars. It doesn't matter how good we get. There will always be someone who says, pretty good. Not Stone Cold, though. So he does admit, as he got on in the business, that his focus was so much on the wrestling business that he became selfish and focused only on himself, which put everything else in the back burner. So he got a divorce, of course. He had a few of those, actually. He never really had a relationship with his 2 daughters. His ex-wife and daughters went to visit extended family in London, and then 9/11 happened while they were there. And so everyone was afraid to get on a plane, and so they just kind of stayed there. And he had a really this was, you could see it on the television as well. Things were just starting to shift in his life, and he became so focused on it, like anybody does, when it became an addiction essentially for him, that it wasn't fun anymore. He was angry, bitter, paranoid, untrusting. He bottled stuff up. He was afraid that he'd lose his spot if he took a break. And after his big feud with The Rock went off to Hollywood for his first round of Hollywood business, and there was nobody like at his level anymore. He was like above the top tier. Like there was nobody who could get to that like God tier level.
Yeah.
And so they had nothing for him to do. and they basically called him up and said, hey, you're going to fight Brock Lesnar and lose. There was no build up to the match. It was going to be essentially a job match. Stone Cold Steve Austin was going to job to Brock Lesnar. And so he said, I'm not going to do it. And he left. And that was the infamous Steve took his ball and went home promo that Vince cut the next night.
Yeah.
And so he was gone for a while, came back, had a very short run, and then WrestleMania 19 was his last match. And that's when and he didn't tell anybody that it was his last match except for Vince and his opponent, which was The Rock. And this was the third WrestleMania match between Stone Cold and The Rock. Stone Cold had won the first two. He wanted The Rock to win this. And so they had a fantastic match. And while Stone Cold is lying on the mat after the match is over, The Rock bends down and tells him that he loves him. And Stone Cold laughs and said, I love you too. Two of the biggest, manliest wrestlers saying, I love you. I love you. But I mean, he's talked about how he left the business and he moped for a long time, moped for a couple of years, I think 3 years about it, and then decided, you know what, I better capitalize on this brand before people forget who I am. Went to Hollywood, did a couple B movies, not all that great.
There was one where he played a janitor that taught a kid to box. I remember starting to watch this film.
Did a few TV show spots as well. But then he found his niche with with hosting. So he hosts like reality competition shows and podcasts, and he says he loves it. It keeps him in the business. He doesn't have the itch to go back and wrestle anymore. So sorry, you're not going to see him in Saudi Arabia. It doesn't matter how much they're going to pay him. He's not going to come back for that match.
I love America.
So I mean, yeah, that's the hard part about most wrestlers, and we did the same thing with Macho Man. Is that the fame does come with a price, because it's hard to balance both a family life and being a top star in a wrestling business, especially when you're gone so much.
Yeah.
But the one thing that is true is that without him, I don't think WWE would have won the Monday Night Wars. Just like you said, there's a whole domino effect. Without Stone Cold Steve Austin, I'm not sure the Attitude Era comes to be. And
I don't even think wrestling becomes as big.
Yeah.
Like the longevity of wrestling without the Attitude Era and without Stone Cold is nil.
He brought it into the mainstream. Like as soon as he started getting popular, he was on Regis and Philbin. He was on SNL. He was on everything.
Regis and Philbin?
Regis and Philbin.
Regis and Philbin? Regis and
Kathy
Philbin.
Lee. Sorry, Regis and Kathy Lee. He was on Celebrity Deathmatch. You know, he was on all these different things that stretched out well beyond wrestling. To, you know, it was at the point where you say WWE, the only thing that anyone says is Hulk Hogan. Because that's the only person anybody knew before that wasn't a wrestling fan. And that's only because he branched out into so many other things that weren't wrestling. Stone Cold didn't do that yet.
Yeah.
It was just his commanding chemistry with the business and with, mainstream America that made him a big deal. So
I miss Celebrity Deathmatch. That show was awesome.
So he does say he is the same guy now, just without all the pressure.
That's good.
That's the best version of Stone Cold.
That's good. Yeah, I mean, what's left to say? I mean, where do you go from there?
I mean,
where do you go from?
I can tell you what I hated about him.
Do tell.
It's brief, just 3 things.
Okay.
I hated his run as heel Stone Cold. There were a few funny moments with Kurt Angle, but
they were mostly because of Kurt Angle.
It was mostly because of Kurt Angle. He was the laughs, and Stone Cold became the dry.
Yeah, when Stone Cold kind of became like the lapdog
man.
Yeah.
That was weird. The invasion storyline where he turns on the WWF and joins the WCW team. Why would he? The WCW fired him. Why would he join that team? Dumb. And the What Chance, which I already mentioned. What Chance, worst thing. And I think, and I hope and I pray that they're over, because I haven't heard them since COVID.
Yeah, the COVID went away, and we
Did the what chance catch COVID? I hope so.
They didn't make it past coronavirus.
That's the only thing I hope the virus killed.
Yeah. And welcome back to the Two Words Podcast Season 3 finale, where we are talking about none other than the dead man, the Phenom, the American Wait.
Yeah, careful.
This is a family show. The Undertaker.
The American Bad Booty.
The American Bad Booty, which we're going to talk about here in a minute. Of wrestlers, I think that you could find of influential wrestlers, of people who shaped our generation of wrestling fan, it's got to be The Undertaker. There's nobody better. And I feel like the year that he, earlier this season, he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and it would have been an injustice not to dedicate an entire episode. And I'm telling you, we could have dedicated this entire hour to just talking about The Undertaker. So I guess the question is, what made him that way? I mean, what made him such an influential part of our wrestling journey?
Yeah. Quite a lot of things. The thing that always stuck out to me, especially as I've gotten older and kind of learned more about the ins and outs of the business, he has had tremendous respect for the business his entire career, to the point where it's very clear he has never forgotten where he came from. He has always remained loyal to WWE in the good times and the bad times. He never jumped ship. He stuck it out even when, WWE was losing the Monday Night Wars. And even when he became like one of the biggest names in the business, he didn't let that go to his head. He didn't, become this, arrogant, person, which, he almost earned the right to be.
Definitely.
But he didn't have that arrogance about him. In fact, he cared about the new guys. And, you can kind of tell the person that he was, given the fact that he was the quote unquote judge for the wrestlers court.
Yeah.
Back there.
Yeah.
Like, everybody trusted him to make the decision.
Yeah.
Because they knew he would be fair about it.
Well, and I think you're right. I think he set the bar in ring.
Yeah.
But he also, from the stories you hear, he really set the bar for how wrestlers acted outside of the ring, like backstage when nobody was looking. Like, no, you're going to respect each other. You're going to respect you're going to respect these guys who have been doing it. You're going to respect the guys who are doing it, in the future. Like, respect was really his game. And I think that another part, that tenacity shaped his character.
Yeah.
Because you can very easily see him being like, when he walks into a ring, everybody like immediately has this reaction that you can tell isn't just a pop.
Yeah.
It is not just like cheap heat. Like it is, oh, the Undertaker's music is playing and I know what happens if I don't respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like I know who he is. And so it's almost like you can definitely see like if he walked into a room backstage, people sit up straighter, like people act that way. And, it's getting more into our faith side of things. There's a guy named John Randalls who used to talk about, everybody is either there's two types of people. There's supernovas and black holes. And supernovas come in and they light up the room and people notice when they're there and they change what's going on. People change when that dude walks in a room. And black holes do the exact opposite. They suck all the energy out and everybody gets really upset. And Undertaker really was that supernova. Like he walked in and people identified him and changed what they did. But then you also look at what he did in the ring, and he was able to keep one character, essentially.
Yeah.
4 or 5 different versions of that character, but one character for 30 years.
Which is incredible because, like you said, the versions, his ability to successfully reinvent himself in all these different versions and still still hold to that overall gimmick. That is incredibly difficult to do for any wrestler one time.
Yeah.
Let alone multiple times over 30 plus years, and it ring true every single time.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, we give the motorcycle taker, as we might call him,
There you go.
the American bad guy. You know, but that even still, like, it fits somehow inside of.
That was the most different because they changed his music.
They changed his music. He did more talking.
Did more
that sort
talking.
of stuff.
He came out on a motorcycle instead of slowly sauntering.
Yeah, but even that was a really, you know, now that I'm just like thinking about it really heavily, you know, the original idea for the Undertaker was like this Old West Undertaker.
Yeah.
You know, the ominous presence in those old westerns. And so putting that version of Undertaker in the middle, which I know we're going to talk about this, but we'll just talk about it now. You know, putting that right in the middle of the character helped him transition to kind of a mixture of the two, but he's no longer like that weird spooky
Right.
Undertaker. Now
But he still had that. He still commanded that fear though.
Yeah,
even
yeah.
during that run.
Now it's just a dude in a black trench coat that I'm very afraid of. You know, that can somehow make lightning strike.
And that's obviously more like his actual personality.
Yeah.
Which I think is great that they use that for his final match with AJ Styles. They let him come back as that version of himself. And it's still, in that match, there was still that air of, you know,
supernatural kind of
spooky stuff, like him popping out of the grave.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of stuff. All that neat garbage that they threw in on that weird COVID WrestleMania.
Yeah.
But they pulled it off so well. That was the best thing about that WrestleMania.
100%.
Which, arguably, not a difficult thing to do. But but it was really, really good. It would have been good in any WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was beautiful to see. Also, I'm surprised because he has been such a stickler with the business and the rules of, you know, wrestling. I'm surprised that he won his last match.
Yeah.
Because that has traditionally been the rule, is you lose your last match because you're supposed to be putting someone else over.
Yeah.
But I think if there was anybody in the company worth breaking that rule for, it was the loyalist workhorse that the company's ever had.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that probably Undertaker would have you know,
Oh, absolutely.
happily lost that match, but he's also I'm going to do what I'm told.
Yeah.
And that's the end of it. So if I'm told I'm going to win this match, then I'm going to win the match. Sorry, y'all. And that's the crazy thing is, like, you are so respected. You're respected by Vince. You're respected that much by Vince McMahon, who is not doing anything that's not going to make money, which is understandable. But, you know, if it's not drawing me money, then it's not working.
Right.
But, you know, I think the exception there's the exception.
He also had an incredible moveset for his size as well.
Yeah.
The last ride, the tombstone.
Do you have more of that water?
Drover. Yeah, I have another one. And I never remember what the thing where he walks on the rope is called.
It's called Old School.
Old School.
That's all
That's
it
right.
is. Which is a weird name.
Right, which is why because I'm always thinking it's got to be some sort of weird supernatural name.
Yeah.
Or death name. But anyway, his moveset is iconic, classic. He's an incredible athlete, which is not always very common with the big men.
No.
Like he's traditionally, or I mean not traditionally, but he's throughout his career been very agile, very fast when he needs to be.
I remember one of the first wrestling games that I played, video games, and the first time I played as the Undertaker, and I accidentally, I don't know what I was button mashing, I think at the time, and I hit a button and Undertaker does a lariat leg drop. And I'm like, why are you jumping and flipping? Like, you just doing a standing somersault is really what he was doing. But he could do that in real life.
Yeah, he absolutely could. He's very resilient.
Yeah.
And he had a couple rough years. I remember a few of those streak years where we're just like, yeah, maybe we should be done. Maybe we should wrap that up. But even then, after that, he would come back and he'd look amazing.
Yeah.
And wrestle amazing.
He always was able to convince you that he could do more.
Yeah. And he's still not ruled out the possibility of it either.
He says that.
He has recently brought up, well, I don't know. I saw Stone Cold over there and he looked like he was having a fun time.
Yeah. Stone Cold did look like he was having a fun time.
My gosh, he was a kid in a candy store.
It was great. And honestly, I think that, we talk about this character, but legitimately in the ring, like you know that match is really, really good.
Oh yeah.
So if I was thinking about it, if I was talking to somebody and they were trying to get me to convince, and I was having to convince them to get into wrestling, and it's like, I'll watch 4 matches or I'll watch 5 matches. I'll give you Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker 1 and 2. Mm-hmm. I'll give you Triple H versus Undertaker 1 and 2 at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. And I'll give you Edge versus Undertaker. Mm-hmm. And those are 5 of the greatest matches ever put together by anybody. And they were like one right after another.
They really were, yeah.
Like there was legitimate, when we talk about those streak years, when he wrestled Roman Reigns, and it really wasn't all that great. And we talk about the streak years when he wrestled, even the Bray Wyatt match, it wasn't super great, which I don't think was his fault. But
was that the one with the overhead projections of maggots and junk?
No, that was Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton.
Oh, okay.
Which was equally awful.
It was, yeah.
But there was legitimately, we forget there was a string of 6 or 7 years. I mean, it was Shawn Michaels, Triple H, and then CM Punk.
Yeah, which was also a good one.
Yeah, which is awesome. I mean,
that's one of my favorites.
It was one of those that a guy has made it when they're going to give him 30 minutes at WrestleMania, mm-hmm. or they're going to give him 45 minutes at WrestleMania. Mm-hmm. That's how you've garnered some respect. What are some of your favorite Taker moments?
So like we said, you mentioned my best ones, which is that 4-year stretch of the 2 HBK and 2 Triple H matches. It was really good. That second HBK match, because they put it on last. They figured it out. They learned that these Undertaker matches need to be the main event.
Yeah.
And so they did that. I think they did that for at least one of the Triple H matches too. Taker winning his first WWE Championship at Survivor Series 91 versus Hulk Hogan, which was 1 year after arriving to WWE. I really love the storyline where the Undertaker kidnapped Stone Cold from the hospital and attempted to sacrifice him before Kane saved him.
There were some weird moments there.
Of course, the Hell in a Cell match with Mankind. I know that's typically thought of as a Mankind highlight, but the Undertaker was pulling off some pretty. Nobody else could have
done that match with Mick Foley.
Absolutely.
I mean, he really couldn't have. And you talk, and I'll go back. I could spend an entire podcast talking about Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker.
Absolutely.
But you read in Shawn Michaels' book, like that first match was so good.
Yeah.
That first match was so good. That match convinced him to retire, because he tells a story at the beginning of his book, Wrestling with Faith, that he went back to his hotel after the WrestleMania, and he was sitting on the edge of his bed, and his wife was like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "That should have been it. That should have just been it. That should have been the last match. I don't want to wrestle again." Like, I don't have to wrestle. When it's so good, it wasn't like I don't want to wrestle. It's like I don't have to. Right. There's nothing else to do.
Was it that first match that Shawn Michaels came in as basically the anti-Undertaker?
Yeah,
Came
from
in
like
the
he
white,
ascended
the white
from the
trench
ceiling.
coat, the white cowboy hat.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was beautiful.
That whole match, man, piece by piece, that was such a great piece. And in that match, there's a moment where he does the tope suicido. Mm-hmm. Is it a tope suicido if you do it over the top rope? I don't know. He did it. He jumped over the top rope, and like he landed on a cameraman, but he almost landed on his head.
That's right.
And there was like Shawn Michaels. You see that like it's really the only botch in the match. Really, you see Shawn Michaels pull the cameraman, and it's like Undertaker was 100% willing to snap his neck in half on behalf of this match, but so few people. I mean, like so few people would have any problem getting in the ring with Undertaker because they knew they were going on the same way.
Yeah, I don't think I can't recall him ever like injuring anybody.
Yeah,
or anything of that nature. Like he's a safe worker. He takes care of the people he's wrestling with.
I love the moment of him popping out of the casket during his feud with Randy Orton. After Randy Orton had set the casket on fire, and then like a few months later, he came back. That was really great. I think also one of the greatest moments to a WrestleMania build-up was him and Brock Lesnar. When Brock Lesnar yelled, "I'm gonna kill you," and the Undertaker could have said anything right there, but he chose to say, "You're gonna have to," and it's like, oh,
it was great.
Like I was 10 years old and I just loved it so much. Like that is a movie scene.
That was it.
You can't. Martin Scorsese couldn't write that.
It was a beautiful feud.
Despite the fact he doesn't write films, but still, that doesn't matter.
That's where they had like 100 guys down there trying to separate them.
Yeah,
when that happened, I mean, that was so. The build up to that match was so good.
It was fantastic. So, do you ever think there's going to be another? I mean, of that magnitude. I'm not even going to say like somebody who could come in and strike fear that same way.
Right.
Because I think anything in the fear realm, it would look kind of like a ripoff. It would just be a ripoff. That's what it would be.
So, like we look at like Stone Cold, The Rock. We look at John Cena. All the bigger names, the bigger celebrity.
Yeah.
Okay. But when it comes to the actual, like, just the wrestling, just the focus, and the length of it, and the quality of it over time, no. First of all, WWE doesn't take enough time to develop characters like this anymore. We saw that with both incarnations of Bray Wyatt. If anyone was going to be the next Taker, it probably would have been him. But they wasted the opportunities, threw away months of development, and fired him, despite being one of the most popular characters in recent history for WWE.
Yeah.
And there could also, I mean, so much of, especially the back half of Undertaker's career was defined by the WrestleMania streak. They're not going to be able to pull anything like that off again. Taker built a lot of his mystique around matches that aren't done anymore as well. Or at least not done in the same way. You know, Hell in a Cell, Buried Alive matches, Inferno matches. These things just aren't, Hell in a Cell is a glorified cage match these days. Yeah. It's not what it was with Mankind.
Yeah, anytime somebody now is like, we're going to do it in Hell in a... Like, Cody Rhodes and Seth Rollins, the Cody versus Seth 3 is going to be a Hell in a Cell. And I'm like, okay.
It's going to be good, but it's not going to... The fact that you're just going to have a harder floor around the ring to suplex him on, and you're going to toss him into the little chain link thing a couple times. That's really all that it adds to it anymore.
Yeah.
The Buried Alive matches were some of my favorite matches early on. You had those with Mankind, Stone Cold, where you actually throw your opponent in an open grave and bulldoze a whole bunch of dirt on top of them. Amazing.
Yeah.
You don't do that. You can't do that anymore. No. The Inferno matches, first person to be set on fire loses.
Yeah.
You can't do that anymore. Like all that added to like this big air of like these matches were reserved for the Undertaker. The Undertaker wasn't in the matches. They rarely ever happened.
Yeah.
And that just added this whole new level to his character. So even decades later, as he's just wrestling at WrestleMania and they're just straightforward matches, you still have that whole back catalog in your mind thinking, but I know what this dude's capable of. What kind of crazy junk
It's
this
never...
guy used to do. I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever
you know,
have one.
you had the streak. And walking into his match with Edge, which you mentioned earlier, or with Triple H or with Shawn Michaels or CM Punk, there was always something in the back of your head that was like, well, this story could go a different way.
Yeah.
You know, it wasn't until he had a way of being able to tell this story where it's like, yeah, I might lose. I don't know. You know, and not a lot of people could have a 16 match win streak and still convince you like it could be over at any WrestleMania. Who knows?
Right.
Like he was the one that kind of convinced you of that. I don't think that there is anybody that I don't look at anybody now and think, oh, he commands respect when he walks into a room.
Yeah.
Like this.
Not at that level.
Not at that level. And it's like, I don't know. Where do you even start? You know,
the fact that he had such an air of invincibility with this streak, that when Brock Lesnar, who is a massive human being who destroys anybody in his path, when he won, nobody could believe it.
Yeah.
Like, if anyone's going to beat up an old, frail man, it's going to be Brock Lesnar. But still, when that happened, everyone's like, no, this isn't possible. That's the Phenom.
Yeah.
How did he do it?
Why? Why?
And that is one of the most heartbreaking but powerful storytelling endings to one of these matches.
Yeah.
And it was beautiful and painful. And I'm glad they ended that WrestleMania on a big high note.
Yeah.
Because everyone was really sad after that match.
Yeah. That was definitely not supposed to be.
I watched that whole WrestleMania 30 before this year's WrestleMania. I'm like, man, this was a roller coaster of emotions.
It was so... My emotions! Well, some quick facts about The Undertaker that I have. Before he got into wrestling, he went to Texas Wesleyan University, which didn't know he was Methodist. Guess you don't have to be Methodist to... Isn't that the Wesleyans?
I thought they were their own thing.
Oh, maybe they are. I'm not... I don't know.
No.
No, now we have to know.
Oh, no, it's Methodist. Okay. Yeah, Methodist theology.
Because John Wesley.
I'm
a thinking man. Went to Wesleyan College on a basketball scholarship and even went over to Europe and played some G League basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah. That was when big men could play basketball. Like that was when, that was the time of like Bill Lambier and David Aguirre. And it's like you had guys who were legitimately like, 6'11", 250 pounds. They were just like these giant guys that would like punch people in the face,
or they would just stand at the goal on the other side.
Like that was back when you could do that.
They could just drop it in.
There was a weird time between then and then, and let's see. Real name Mark Calloway. He has wrestled under the name The Undertaker since 1990 with monikers such as The Phenom and The Dead Man. However, that is just the last of 10 names he has gone by in the squared circle. Earlier incarnations included Mark Callis, Mean Mark Callis, Mean Mark, Dice Morgan, Texas Red, Commando, The Punisher, The Master of Pain, and Kane, The Undertaker. That's right. We forget Kane was originally the name for The Undertaker, and then around 91, they just kind of dropped it out of nowhere.
I also forgot he was a redhead.
Yeah. You kind of forget that he was a weird looking redhead too. And Undertaker's shot in the WWE came because, do you know what film got the Undertaker his WWE chance?
Oh, I feel like I've heard this story, but I don't remember.
Suburban Commando.
Yeah.
He played the bad guy, the super strong bad guy whose goal was to destroy the immortal Hulk Hogan. And the Hulkster noticed his strength and acting career, and after finding out that he was a professional wrestler, he called up Vince McMahon. I think that sounds more like Hulk Hogan's telling of the story, because Hulk Hogan can't stand not being the guy that found the guy, you know?
For real, yeah.
So, those are just some fun things. I also think he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which he's very big for doing Brazilian. Like, he's so big, I don't think there's a weight class for him to fight in. If he decided, because everybody talks about, you could have gone into MMA, and because he's done some MMA stuff. It's like, I don't think there's a weight class for him. I don't think there's anybody there. I don't think he'd be allowed, like, by any by any group of fighters. Welcome back to the Two Words Podcast, where we're doing our season 4 finale wrestler spotlight. Talking about the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, the showstopper, Mr. WrestleMania himself. I think our undisputed number 1, right?
Absolutely.
Like, both of us.
The GOAT.
Yeah, it immediately, when like I got into wrestling, I immediately attached myself to Shawn Michaels, because like, this is the guy. He's fun, he's athletic, he's great on the mat, he's from Texas, he checks all of the marks. And he's a Christian, and he's very into his faith, and was pushed his faith out there as a human being, which is not always something people do when they're in the spotlight. So it was kind of cool. So I guess the question is, like, why is he our all-time number 1?
It's a lot of good questions, but that's the hardest one.
I think for me personally, like, he was a great performer.
Oh yeah.
But part of that performance was like, he could tell stories with the match. Like, so many times you have wrestlers that tell the story going into the match is part of the story, and then like they keep telling the story after the match, or the story's ended by the match. But like, with Shawn Michaels, I mean, and we'll get into these matches here in a little bit, but Shawn Michaels Undertaker matches, like, the matches themselves were the story.
Absolutely.
The moments in those matches were the story.
And that second one, it was a perfect retirement match.
Perfect. Perfektenschlag.
Yeah. The stay down thing from Undertaker.
Yeah.
Stay down.
Yeah.
Him refusing to. Beautiful stuff.
The Ric Flair match.
Yeah.
So much.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Yeah,
Sweet
like,
chain music.
How do you tell? Like, you tell a story with your with your movements and with the way you react, and I think that's really the biggest part of it. Because honestly, like, he was good on the mic.
He's all right. Yeah.
He was definitely not great on the mic.
So here's my list of why. These are all just little parts of the reason why he's my number 1. First wrestler of my generation to overcome Vince McMahon's distaste for having small guys win the title, the big title.
Yeah.
He did not like that. He did not like having small guys win it. We saw that played out as a storyline with Daniel Bryan. He was one of the very few still Grand Slam champions, having won all the titles. He is the king of long form matches. He won 2 back-to-back Royal Rumbles. He's put in an amazing Iron Man matches. Ric Flair's farewell match, the first one anyway. 2 show-stopping matches with The Undertaker at WrestleMania rank as some of the greatest matches of all time. All very long matches, and none of them got slow. None of them got boring. You would never hear a chant in a Shawn Michaels match. If this is boring.
Not even a little bit.
Not even a little bit. He built DX, one of the greatest stables of all time.
Twice.
Twice.
That needs to be noticed. Like, he did that twice. And he, like, and that's part of kind of something that I was thinking is, like, he just keeps reinventing himself in, like, a positive way.
Yeah. Sweet Chin Music, one of the best looking finishers ever. And you need to have one that looks devastating as a small guy like that, when it's not going to be like a submission hold or something. I believe every Sweet Chin Music I see.
Oh, yeah.
It looks so
It
good.
makes that sound.
No one can do it like him, too. It's so perfect. That sound is a perfect sound.
And that's part, you know, like, because there's lots of guys that do super kicks.
Yes.
Like, everybody has a super kick. But there's always that one guy who does that one move really, really well. Like, you know, Goldberg's spear.
Yeah.
Nobody does a spear like Goldberg.
That's why they had to give Roman Reigns that Superman punch.
Yeah.
Because the spear wasn't selling.
You know, nobody does the RKO, but before it had a bunch of different names. Like, nobody does the RKO like Randy Orton.
Right.
Nobody does Sweet Chin Music like Shawn Michaels.
Absolutely. But most of all, I think I really admire him for his transition as a person, like a real person.
Yeah.
Because he really was the vain, egotistical jerk of a person before he first retired in '98, when he thought that he was done because of his injuries. And he was a drug addict, an alcoholic, all this junk. And he really did come to Christ and turn his whole life around.
Yeah.
And the Shawn Michaels that showed up in 2002, pardon me, was so different and so almost inspiring, coming in like a friggin' white knight,
Yeah.
ready to take down Triple H. Like, loved it. I didn't expect it. This was long before internet rumors and all this that I was involved in. Just watching that happen live and seeing Shawn freaking Michaels come out in a Saved One t-shirt from Caruso, just like, what is happening? And I love it all.
He literally went to the Lifeway store before showing up at SummerSlam.
Showed up in SummerSlam with his Phil 413 on there.
Yeah. Wouldn't it have been so great to just see like Shawn Michaels come in all of the awful Caruso shirts?
Catch up with Jesus.
Catch up with Jesus.
The Lord's Gym.
Yeah, I mean, like, they were, oh my gosh. I relish in Jesus' saving power, or whatever. Like, it would have been so great if you just kept showing up. Mm-hmm. In that sort of stuff.
Jesus instead of Reese's.
Yeah, that was the big one. Gosh, that was so bad. Christians, why did we do this to ourselves? There was a Mountain Dew one too, wasn't there?
Meant to die.
Meant to die.
Yeah.
They didn't even make sense at some point. It was just a word over a logo.
With an M and a word with a W. No, I mean a word with a D. Sorry. An M and a D. That's what we need. Let's find it out. Let's figure it out.
All right. So, and it's almost an impossible task.
Yeah.
But, like, what are just some of the outrageously great matches that Shawn Michaels has? Because you could almost say all of them, but...
Okay. So we're doing matches?
Yeah, we'll go with the matches.
I got some moments, too.
Okay.
But let's say the ladder match with Razor Ramon. Like, it wasn't the first ladder match, but it might as well have been.
Yeah.
Because that's the one everyone remembers.
Yeah.
Fantastic ladder match.
Oh, that whole thing was put together. You can sprinkle in your moments in here as well.
Okay, I will.
If you'd like.
I'll sprinkle them.
Jeff Jarrett at In Your House 2. They did a match in '95 that people don't really talk about a lot, but it was, I watched a little bit of it coming before I came here, and it was like, both of those guys really did. It goes back to that whole telling a story and being able to really use your character as part of the match.
Yeah, I rented that pay-per-view on VHS.
Oh,
in 8th
Dope.
grade.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
The his Elimination Chamber match in his gross brown pants where he won the WWE title.
Oh man, those pants.
He had the brown pants and he had like the weird the bob haircut.
Yeah.
Like it was like shoulder length.
Yeah, well, because he had just come back like a year earlier, right?
Not even that long.
Yeah.
Like it was that year, but yeah.
Yeah. Triple H at SummerSlam, I think the year before.
Yeah, that was
that
was
was
the unsanctioned street
Yeah,
fight.
that was the one he came back
was
in
that
the
one,
cruiser
yeah.
shirt. Yeah, I mean, and kudos to those two guys for being able to like tell this small part of their story and make that part of like they were best friends and then Shawn Michaels left and then they were huge enemies. I mean, they were rivals.
Yeah.
And then they were best friends again.
And they worked all the different ways.
Like
it worked
seamlessly,
so well. Yeah.
seamlessly. That elimination chamber match in 2003 though, that was like that whole match start to finish was nuts because you forget like that was Triple H, Shawn Michaels, Jericho, Goldberg, Kevin Nash, and I think there was one more guy. There was
one more, but I don't remember.
Insanity.
It was a big match.
Yeah, it was insanity. The I love you, I know moment.
Absolutely.
If you don't bawl like a baby.
Or no, that you said I love you. I know that's Star Wars. You meant I'm sorry. I love you.
I'm sorry, I love you. Yeah. Whatever.
Hey, you're just up in your nerd cred.
Just
that's
up in
all.
the nerd credit. The I'm sorry, I love you thing. Like if you just don't bawl like a baby,
man.
like even if you don't
'Cause
like
he
Ric
was
Flair,
balling, man. He was balling like a baby.
knowing that Ric Flair has been a garbage human being for a while, like you still go.
He was still the inspiration for a lot of wrestlers.
How does Shawn Michaels beat up a 60-year-old man and we somehow feel sympathy for Shawn Michaels? That's why he's the best. That's why he's number one.
I got HBK versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 21. I think people forget like how good of a rivalry Kurt Angle and HBK had.
Yeah.
They worked, their chemistry was seamless as well. Like in a way, probably not seen until the Taker matches. Like they were real good.
You forget how good of a like, and I know that it's dumb to say this, but like I think you do forget how good of a wrestler and performer Kurt Angle was.
Only because he was also such a big personality.
Yeah.
Like he had such a range of the comedy and the heel stuff.
Yeah.
Like that's what you remember from him most. You don't really remember the matches, even though the matches were fantastic matches too. The match that he had with Hogan at SummerSlam 2005.
I have that on my list.
It's so good. It's your what?
I have that on my list.
On your list, yeah. Where he was, the way it was set up is it was going to be a set of 3 matches between Hogan and HBK with HBK winning one, Hogan winning one, Hogan winning the last one. That's how it was set up. But Hogan kind of last minute is like, you know what? I don't want to lose any of these matches. And Vince was like, okay. And
Sure.
so HBK heard that.
Probably did the whole, well, that's not going to work for me,
He
brother.
was going to lose to Hogan for 3 times and heard that he was going to lose on the match he was supposed to win. And so he just went out there and flopped like a flippin' rag doll. Every hit sent him just every limb in every direction. He bounced. He did cartwheels. He flopped on the ground like a fish.
Yeah.
Like it was the pettiest way to handle it, but it was so entertaining. Going back and watching just Hogan's face through the whole thing, where he's both baffled and enraged the entire match.
But that's the other thing is the probably the best part to me about that whole match is when Hogan gets interviewed about the HBK overselling. He goes, I didn't think he was overselling at all. That's just how you wrestle, isn't it? Like to Hogan,
that's what my moves do.
To Hogan, Shawn Michaels was doing the best job of anybody at selling for him, and he doesn't understand why people think it's all like.
Oh gosh,
love that. And then we have both of the Taker matches. Like we don't even have to talk about those, but like
well, I have 2 moments for those 2.
Okay. Yeah. I think that when you have such a good match that one of the guys leaves and goes, I should just stop wrestling. Like as an artist, as somebody who has performed, as somebody who does, who stages for a living, like I go like, I'm never content with anything that I ever do completely.
Right.
And so like the idea that I would be done with something and go, oh, I should just stop.
That was good. That was nice. That could
This
have
is
been,
my swan song.
that could
Watch
have
me
been the
fly.
final match for both of them.
Yeah.
And everybody would have been happy
Yeah.
because it was so good. And
Easily.
it probably should have been the last one for Undertaker. But anyway, the two moments that I have from the first one from WrestleMania 25 was HBK coming down from the sky as like the anti-taker in a white cloak, white cowboy hat, just like the holy version of the Undertaker.
Yeah.
That was the dopest HBK entrance of all time, in my opinion. But the second one was actually like the second one, if you remember the storyline buildup, was that HBK wanted to prove himself. He said, I should not have lost that match at WrestleMania 25. I need another chance. And
Yeah.
Undertaker was like, nope, you get one. And so it became like, it was like a 4-month storyline of
Yeah.
HBK doing everything he can to convince or earn his way into this match. He convinced the world that he could win the Royal Rumble and challenge the Undertaker for his championship of just holding the streak.
Yeah.
But we all bought it, and then he lost, and you just saw like his heartbreak as he got kicked over the ropes.
Yeah.
At Royal Rumble, thinking that was his last chance. Like the chase was just a beautiful final storyline for him.
And this might be one of the weirder things I've ever said, but his pants in that match were outstanding. That is the best looking getup ever from any wrestler ever. It was the white chaps with the gold, with the gold tribal on it, and it looks dope.
It was sick. And my last moment, and then I'll let you finish it up, is of course the very first moment for HBK, the true HBK, was when he kicked his Rocker's partner Marty Jannetty right through the glass with the super kick or the sweet chin music. And that was just like, that set him on a rocket ship and to the moon.
Yeah. And just this idea that like, he did all this stuff where he was like the skeevy guy, and he was, with Sensational Sherry, and then he was with Kevin Nash as like his bodyguard, and but then he also like get in the match, and then like it was like the opposite of what the Miz does, right? Because like the Miz will like be the skeevy one and then trash the match somehow. But like HBK would be the skeevy one and then do great in the match, and it was amazing. So do you think there would ever be another HBK caliber talent?
So like through the entire time I've been watching, there have been setting up people as, they've been calling him, this is the next HBK.
Yeah.
And the 4 names that I have that I remember getting this moniker are Chris Jericho, Dolph Ziggler, Bryan Danielson, and Seth Rollins.
That is a formidable group of people.
But Chris Jericho has become his own thing, his own legend for sure. Dolph Ziggler kind of gone the opposite direction. I think they could have built him up into the new Shawn Michaels. And I think they almost did, but then they pulled it back, and now he's just he's the workhorse guy in the back.
Talent-wise, Dolph Ziggler is the most talented person on that list.
Definitely could do it too, but he's not going to be.
No.
Bryan Danielson also, I think, has just become his own dude. Like his own amazing story, that whole thing that they put together for WrestleMania 30.
Yeah.
I don't think that's. I think it would be a disservice at that point to call him the new Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
Because I think he made his own name at that point.
Yeah. I also think the way he wrestles because of his injuries, I don't think we can call it that anymore.
Right. So Seth Rollins being the last name for me on the list here. I really think he's kind of becoming the new Triple H. Not the new HBK.
Could be.
In a little ways. I mean,
Yeah.
he's a little more skeevy than Triple H was, because Triple H is just kind of a more imposing figure.
Yeah.
But like he's he's turning into a. Well, I say that. I was about to say he's turning into the evil heel, not the cocky heel, but I kind of take that back because he has been more in the cocky role the last few months, and now he's kind of like in a face place. I think he's finding his own path.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's enough time to build him into like an HBK level caliber wrestler.
Yeah, I don't think that's the direction they're going with that.
Yeah.
We also didn't talk about Shawn Michaels and Chris Jericho. Like that match at WrestleMania 17.
That was a really good match.
There's too many good matches.
What about I want to hear from you? Do you have? I mean, do you think there's? Ever going to be one?
I don't think, because I think that comparison is so difficult, and immediately when you say this person is the next blank, you're like, he's not.
Right.
It just it almost is like
we were saying that with Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, like he's going to be the new Undertaker, and
it's almost like
it's not going to happen.
Observing it's almost like that law that when something is observed, it changes. It changes the results. Like I think that's when you go like, oh, he's the next, HBK. It's like, no, he's not going to be the next HBK. I think Dolph Ziggler really had a shot. Yeah. And I think had Dolph Ziggler been allowed to do more. But now at this point, I think he's just too fed up to want to do, any of that. I would also suggest that the closest right now is Kenny Omega. But I think Kenny Omega is more of a Jericho than anything else.
I would kind of agree with that, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think closest right now would definitely be.
I would agree with that. Omega. As a statement, I would agree with that. Especially like the heel work.
Yeah.
Like heel HBK, like his heel run that he had when he had the championship here this last run with the guy from Impact being his manager and all that. Yeah. That does actually really remind me of HBK style back then. I like that.
And he wrestles very similarly.
Yes.
He can do the athletic stuff, but he doesn't do the high flying stuff.
Right. But same kind of body type.
Yeah.
Same kind of feel to it. Yeah. Good. I didn't even think about it.
Yeah. That's why I'm the host. That's why I'm getting paid absolutely nothing to do this.
Host, I'm your boss. So chill out right there.
Bubba's my boss. And then behind him is Hillary. So
I have firing powers.
Well, whatever.
Cancel your show like that. It's going to be 2 words with Matt and Matt.
2 words, 1 host. The Matt Show. 2 words, Radio Matt. And that's every week. It's just Radio Matt. Good. First episode is Goodbye, John.
Should we do a whole storyline where I kick you out?
Well, now we can't.
And you release a
go rogue
pirate radio podcast. Dose Words with John Berkey.
Oh my gosh! And I would come up with a new with a whole new ministry,
right, whole new organization,
like thy dork or something, So it'd be a rogue, and then we just infiltrate, and so like I have somebody.
Slam, we go against each other.
Yeah, and then at some point, one of my members invades. We do an invasion storyline on church nerds. Like I get.
You know who I am.
Chris Gwaltney comes back all of a sudden.
Know why I'm here?
That's my thing. Chris Gwaltney's coming back, and we're gonna take the company back over together.
Oh
yes!
Stay tuned for season 5.
This is the best. Season 5 is gonna be off the chain, y'all. Welcome back, everyone, to the 2 Words Podcast, season 5. 5-time season finale, where we are talking about the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, the Brahma Bull himself, The Rock. And
I can spell it.
I mean, yeah, you just name a guy who is more transcendent, even when he was wrestling. Like, everybody knew who The Rock was. They're like, you know, even us sheltered kids who didn't watch wrestling growing, like, everybody knows who The Rock was. Everybody knew The Rock. So I guess the question is, what made him so great?
There's so much, man. So, first of all, I know the title Captain Charisma goes to Christian, but I really feel like The Rock is the king of charisma. Like he as a heel was one who could really back up the talk that he had, but it took a lot of build up for him to like lose. And so that brought about some fantastic matches, but mainly the promos, everything leading up to it. Like, a lot of times we have these matches, these big matches that are coming up, and they're a month away. And we're just like, we just got to get there. I love the fact that it took weeks to get to a big Rock match, because there was weeks of bits with him just cutting the most vicious, entertaining promos.
It was actual story, too. Like, it was just, you know.
And he had, with that, he had a pretty unique ability to have charisma with pretty much anybody. Mm-hmm. Like, it's funny that you had Chat GPT write a promo on Omos. Gosh darn it. Omos. Because I feel like if anybody could have a chemistry, promo thing with Omos, it would only be The Rock.
Yeah.
Nobody else is going to be able
100%.
to pull anything out for Omos. Whether it was opponents or partners, like he sounded great with Stone Cold, Triple H, Kurt Angle, Mankind, Undertaker, Vince, even undercard. You know, Chris Jericho shows up in the middle of a Rock promo. Fantastic back and forth there. Hurricane Helms had a promo off with The Rock at one point.
Oh yeah,
fantastic. Like, everything, every interaction that he had was elevated to a status of best bit of the night.
Yeah.
And that's something that I can't pull anybody else's name out that can do that every time.
Well, and it was coming into it. He was really part of that transition, because if you, I mean, and you know, everybody's going to go, oh, Ric Flair or Dusty Rhodes. Like, no, people in the 80s could not cut promos. They were dumb promos when they
There's a reason why there's a handful that are viral now.
Very few.
Because those were the really good ones.
Yeah.
Made out from decades of them wrestling.
Oh, yeah. So, you know, in you come to the late 90s and the early 2000s, that's when, like, the ability to cut a promo really started taking off.
Yeah.
And I think that he was just the pioneer of that whole thing. You know, you couldn't find anybody that could do it better. Mm-hmm. And like you said, you have somebody that can have charisma and chemistry with anybody.
And he rode the line between being intimidating and over the top ridiculous in a way that I don't think most people could.
Yeah.
Like, the words that he was saying are ridiculous and hilarious, but the way he was saying them were like, I'm glad he's not talking to me.
Yeah.
And his catchphrases, of course. Catchphrase game, top tier. Like, he pulled so many out that just became instant classes. I was thinking boots to...
Boots to classes.
Boots to classes. Instant classics. Just Bring It, of course, being a later one. But If You Smell What The Rock Is Cooking, Do You Smell What The Rock Is Cooking? Finally, The Rock is back in, whatever. You know, all these bangers that anytime he shows up and pulls them out today, everybody loses their ever-loving mind and will for all time.
One of my favorite lines, I don't think I've talked about it on this podcast before, but he was going to have a match with Goldberg in like 2005, I think. And I think it was at a Backlash. And he was doing a promo at the very, like, right before that went out. And the whoever was doing all the backstage interviews was like, well, you've done just about everything. And The Rock goes, no. The Rock hasn't done just about everything. The Rock has done everything. There's nothing The Rock hasn't done. In fact, there's one thing that The Rock hasn't done, and that's make a white baby. And then he just stared at this small, scared white woman, like, and kind of like gave her the eyebrows.
That's kind of the other thing. 90s Rock is not something you could do today.
Oh yeah, no, 1,000%.
His character is a bit over the top, at least when it came to his interaction with the ladies.
Yeah. Which is so interesting because we give John Cena so much crap for going from the Doctor of Thugonomics to the very like child-friendly PG thing. Mm-hmm. We don't do that to The Rock. We don't do that to The Rock. Yeah. Granted, The Rock didn't do that while in wrestling.
Right.
But, like,
I think that's the only reason.
Could be.
That would make sense to me. Is that his persona would change when he gets out of wrestling and goes and does movies like Tooth Fairy.
Yeah. And so I think that because the other questions we were asking is, why is The Rock so important? And I think that's one of the big things. It was the guy who could come in and really create chemistry. He was the standard. He created all of these wonderful storylines and inspired all of these fantastic wrestlers and these fantastic moments. And you just don't have a whole lot of this stuff. I mean, he saved a lot of careers. Mm-hmm.
He also broke the mold for Samoan wrestlers.
Yeah.
Up until him, even including him when he first started as the Blue Chipper, Rocky Maivia, they had been very culture related gimmicks that were brought up, very Samoan culture related gimmicks, which we have a little bit now with the Bloodline, but even that, it's just like a taste of it. It's just like a flavor of this, these characters.
God, family.
It's not the whole thing. For him to switch from that as the Attitude Era rolled in to the cocky leader or the cocky underling of the nation who basically caused a coup and overthrew Farouk and became, the people's champion kind of character that we all knew. That was a big change for not only Samoan wrestlers, but really wrestlers in general. When it came to how you're gonna be a heel, but you're gonna be it in a way that everybody's laughing, and so they love it.
Yeah,
like that's not been. If people were laughing at you when you were a heel before the Attitude Era, it's because you were a stupid heel.
Yeah,
not because you were
Doink the Clown,
charismatic. Yeah, and any of the people that were in that promo against Hulk Hogan. Where he was like the dungeon of whatever.
The dungeon.
Where am I?
Where am I, brother? The Dungeon of Doom was so tragic.
And so we got to see him have those back and forths with Stone Cold. I loved the incident. I think this was still like Intercontinental Championship time where they were technically in the mid card, where they each took a different turn at a different point of the year of tossing each other's title belt in the river at whatever town that they're in.
Yeah.
Like it was like this was some real good chemistry early on before they both became, the main eventers. And then so we had like the people's champion, the corporate champion when he joined Vince and Shane and all that. And then when he got betrayed, it was like the Rock and Sock Connection, him and Mankind. So we got to see him like as the serious bad guy,
this
and
is
then
your
as
life.
like the goofiest, like sidekick almost to. It was like they were both sidekicks to each other in a different way.
But it made it work.
It was so good. It showed such a big range for him.
Yeah.
Which I mean, of course, makes sense now that he's Captain Hollywood.
Yeah.
But like this, it was the phrase. He's built different, like certainly applies to him in all aspects, not just physical, but just the friggin' charisma, man.
And,
I can't get over it.
Because you saw the same thing with like Gold Dust. It's like you take this gimmick that is just absolute trash. You get some because it seems like every once in a while these guys will get something that is meant to ruin their career. And people like Goldust, people like The Rock, they took it and they made their career off of this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So, the Rock and Sock connection, that's timeless, man. Mm-hmm. Like, Here Is Your Life is a timeless bit. So I really have to ask this: what's the best movie that The Rock's ever done?
We're gonna do best first, or we
We'll do best first. We'll do best first.
I don't know what the best one is because they've all got pros and cons. I don't think there's any movie that he's done that's like, this is one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yeah, no, 100%.
I do like the Jumanjis.
Jumanjis are good.
I really like Get Smart, but he's not really the main character in Get Smart. But honestly, my favorite one is probably not a very popular one, but it's Central Intelligence with Kevin Hart.
Central Intelligence was
It was a silly movie, but he did really good in it. I laugh all the time.
Yeah.
I might watch that tonight now that I'm
Yeah.
thinking.
Hey, who knows? There were two movies that he did kind of right there with each other, and it was Walking Tall.
Yes. Underrated.
Which is a fantastic film.
It's got a 23 on Rotten Tomatoes.
That is,
but it is
outrageous.
Such a good
movie. Outrageous. And then there was another one he did.
Rundown.
The Rundown.
Rundown
yes.
with Scott. What's his name?
Scott.
We both got Scott. I think
Scott's his last name. Yeah.
You know who we're talking about.
The guy. You know him.
The guy from, wasn't he in the...
I think wasn't it Stifler?
Yeah, wasn't he in the American Pie movies? Or something?
Something Scott.
I don't know. Anyway, yes.
They
were both great.
Those were both great movies.
Granted,
they're not
cinematic masterpieces.
No,
but
they weren't meant to be.
Popcorn movies.
Especially after you had something like, his appearance in The Scorpion King. Or The Mummy Returns, then The Scorpion King.
That CGI nonsense in that Mummy movie.
So bad.
Looked terrible.
He might as well not even be in that film.
It ruined it.
They might as well not even have been like, oh, it's The Rock, because it's not.
Right. It took me out of that movie in a hurry. I'm like, well, this is
Which is unfortunate, because it's the last 10 minutes of the film.
Right.
Like,
right.
You gotta
the movies were great. Up until that point.
So let's go with, aside from The Mummy Returns.
I don't even have that on the list.
What is the worst? What is the worst Rock film? I'll go first. I hated The Rundown. That movie's dumb.
The Rundown. I don't think I've seen that.
Not The Rundown. The Game Plan.
The Game Plan. Okay, yes. Game Plan was bad.
Game Plan was awful.
Game Plan was bad. Doom was pretty bad. Baywatch was pretty bad. Tooth Fairy was pretty bad.
Doom was so... I forgot. Doom was so bad.
G.I. Joe Retaliation was pretty bad. All of his big budget apocalypse-esque movies. Skyscraper, San Andreas, Rampage.
I didn't even watch Skyscraper.
You shouldn't have. So just don't.
I didn't. I won't. I just can't do it.
People don't like Red Notice. Have you seen Red Notice?
I liked Red Notice.
I love
that.
I want to see more movies with The Rock and Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah.
100%. I didn't hate Black Adam as much as everybody else did.
I forgot to put that on here.
I'm not gonna say it's the greatest movie. It's not the best DC film.
Nah. It's not. It didn't. It was decent.
It didn't deliver.
The problem was all the hype, which was like 14 years of hype that The Rock has been doing.
Significant amount.
It's the fact that...
Since Shazam.
Right. It's the fact that we've had... No, it was before that. He was working on this long before Snyder Cut, before Green Lantern, or about the same time as Green Lantern, I guess.
I didn't know that.
He's been campaigning to do this movie for about a decade.
Wow.
And he's been building that up, and he's not been quiet about it. He's been, every now and then he'd be popping links and we're talking Black Adam. This is back when Man of Steel's coming out and everything. And all that build up and all that time to get this.
Yeah.
Was like, we could have done better.
And you should have been able to do better.
That being said, if you go in without expectations, that's a good movie.
Here's my problem: is I can't watch a movie that has Pierce Brosnan and Aldous Hodge and have low expectations.
That's a good point.
Like, I just can't.
Yeah.
They're two of
I liked Pierce Brosnan as Dr. Fate.
He was a great Dr. Fate.
I want to see more of that.
I liked Aldous Hodge as Hawkman.
Yeah, I think he did a good job. Hawkman has been cast so many times in the last few years.
I didn't dislike The Rock's Black Adam. I thought he was a fine Black Adam. It was just like you're just not delivering. Right. This was supposed to be the hierarchy of the DC universe is shifting. It's like no.
And the other thing that I think was dumb about this whole thing was his complete aversion to Shazam. He did not want Shazam to be in the movie. He did not want any connection to Shazam. He had no interest in eventually sharing the screen with Shazam in a sequel. He wanted it to be Black Adam versus Superman, which is a thing in the comics, sure, but long after we've already established him being a part of the Marvel, the Shazam family, and it should
literally wear the same uniform.
Yeah, it shouldn't. You say the same word. You got the powers from the same guy. Like there should have been a cameo of Zachary Levi. And it could have been hilarious.
There should be a cameo of Zachary Levi in most films.
I would love Zachary Levi to show up everywhere for no reason whatsoever.
All over the place. And granted, then you get like the Tooth Fairy. Why you agreed to do that film, and I understand you take work when you can get work.
Look at Hulk Hogan's movies, man.
I mean,
Dookie.
I
watched that scene after you talked about it.
Stupid is all
you were
that.
Right, man. It was 100%.
Let's focus on some positive. Let's focus on some positive as we close out. Who do you think was the best rivalry for The Rock? And I can almost assume we have the same guy. Maybe.
I feel like it has to be Stone Cold, right?
Okay, then we don't.
We don't.
Guy. No.
Because the Rock and Stone Cold. Here's my pitch here for why it would be the best one. The Rock and Stone Cold were two wrestling gods existing in one universe. Yeah. Like it's hard to say. Hulk Hogan's time, top tier was Hulk Hogan. John Cena's time, top tier was John Cena. Mm-hmm. Most people, including The Rock, will say during the Attitude, Stone Cold was the top tier, but it is hard for people to be convinced of that standing next to The Rock.
Yeah.
Those two were the twin pillars that held up the Attitude Era, and they were very different characters. He was the brawler, fighter, anti-hero. He was the cocky son of a gun, and they were both so good, not just on promos and build up, but the matches themselves. The wrestling was so good. Mm-hmm. Like they had the greatest trilogy of WrestleMania matches I think I've ever seen.
Solid. No, very solid.
And there was a brief period of time I think they were on the same side. They were both bases at the same time at one point. I think it was around the Union versus Corporate Ministry time.
Yeah.
But for the most part, they've always been opposites against each other and keep crossing paths throughout the years. That was always my favorite.
Yeah. No, and that's good. That's good. To me, the best rivalry that The Rock had was The Rock and Triple H.
I will give that to you.
And I say that because you had these two guys who just absolutely hated each other, and they could not have been more polar opposites in who they were.
Yeah.
They had this great, you look at all this collection of matches that they had, and they're all phenomenal. But then you add in The Nation versus DX.
Yeah.
And you had two guys who then made 8 people relevant. And you could have matches, you could pick out one from this side and one from this side at complete random, including the woman. And you had an entertaining match that people cared about.
You're right.
I mean, you made
that might be the truest thing you ever said there. Because I'm thinking about to when I was watching, I'm like, yeah, Road Dogg versus Farouk, I'm here.
Yeah.
Mark Henry versus China, I'm here. Because it counted as Rock versus
yeah. I mean, it really was.
Triple H. It really did.
Billy Gunn and the Godfather. Like, you took the guy. I think that was probably the best version of the Godfather. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand we have, his locomotive of sultry women and that sort of thing, but that was like a joke. That was really the only times he wasn't doing a joke gimmick.
Yeah.
To me.
Yeah, because the Godfather was a joke gimmick.
But even when, and I mean, I don't even know if it's still on the internet, but when all of DX showed up in blackface.
Well, the Rock says.
What the Rock says. The Rock went and took a big dump when you should have smelled what the Rock was cooking. But then you had X-Pac
Henry,
just completely black with a bunch of pillows stuffed in his shirt.
Well, I don't know what I smell. It smells like crap. Oh man!
I mean, come on.
And it was Road Dogg as D'Lo Brown, right?
I think so. Yeah.
That's what the man said. That's what the man said. Flung my headphones off.
Oh
the
my
D'Lo
goodness!
head.
Oh my goodness!
That was such
I love that.
Terrible idea.
It's terrible now.
But it was pre sensitivity on that.
Yeah,
like we have now. But it was a really funny bit. It wasn't done to mock like black people in general. It was just to mock these specific people.
Yeah.
All of the stuff that they did was mocking their own personalities.
Oh yeah, 1,000%.
But and then they had that one kid that came out as Owen Hart with a giant nose.
I mean, it's like about Owen Hart being in the nation, man.
That was weird.
Then you look at all of the marquee matches that The Rock has had, and these like pass the torch moments.
Yeah.
You had The Rock and Hollywood Hogan.
Dude,
like
such a good match.
That was really the last like great thing that Hogan did.
Yeah.
And then you had the match of a lifetime, once in a lifetime, twice.
Once in a lifetime revisited.
But here was the thing: is like
both of those were good matches.
Both of them were good matches, and they both had great build-up. And like, I feel like The Rock is one of the only guys that could be like, we're doing once in a lifetime 2 years in a row.
I think The Rock is one of the only guys that can say, "Hey, it's the night after WrestleMania. I'm challenging you to a match next WrestleMania."
Yeah.
And keep everybody excited for it the whole year.
We did it. He did it.
Omos comes out and say, "Hey, in a year, you and me." I have forgotten about it before the show was over.
Yeah, no, it's good. That would be terrible. Well, let us know about your favorite Rock moment or your favorite Rock rivalry. If we missed something, let us know. Go over to their socials at 2wordsLTN. We've made it an entire season 5. I didn't mess that up once.
You did it. I think you're right.
It's a miracle. It's a Christmas miracle.
Thank you again for reliving these memories from the 2 Words podcast with me today. And like I said, we will be back with brand new shows in 2 weeks. Gosh darn it, no matter what happens, we're going to make it happen. I don't care if we have to record in the middle of the night on a Sunday. We're going to get it done. We're going to get a show out. It's too close to WrestleMania to be skipping more shows. WrestleMania is almost here. It's going to be so good. I'm so excited for it. I hope you're excited for it. Hit us up at 2 Words LTN on all the socials. John's typically the one running the Facebook. I'm typically the one running the Twitter. So, give us a shout. Let us know what you're excited about for WrestleMania. Let us know what you'd like us to cover. We usually go into like deep dives or lists or nostalgia. If you want us to do something like that we haven't done already, help us out. Give us that idea. And if there's a bunch of shows you haven't seen yet, because we're at over 50 now, head on over to Spotify or YouTube at the Love Thy Nerd YouTube channel or any of your favorite podcast apps and find an old show that you love. While the news and the rumors might not be up to date, typically the last segment of the show, the longest segment, the meat segment of the show, is something that's pretty timeless. So go back, find some fun stuff. But that's going to do it for this show, and see you again in 2 weeks. And if you're not down with that, well, I got 2 words for you. Goodbye.